Composition. Hello my friends, I'm back with another video for you guys today, and today we're going to be talking about composition. I had a subscriber, Jerome, shout out to you, man. You guys, you sent me an email and asked me if I could do a video on this, and I had been thinking about doing a video on this for a while actually. I wanted to do a set of tutorials and just kind of lectures going over some of the stuff that I kind of push for in my photos, the things that I take inspiration from, and you know, I do a lot of single light portraits, and I just wanted to show you from one of my favorite painters where I got that inspiration from. His name's Caravaggio. You guys have probably heard of him. Some of you guys probably have, some of you haven't. If you haven't, please stick around for this video because he's unbelievable, and I want to show you what I took from a lot of his paintings and how I incorporated it into my wedding work and my portrait work and just when I'm out shooting. So just want to say thank you again. I'm getting a lot of great feedback. Started this kind of, you know, vlog thing when I'm traveling around. I got a GoPro, so I bought the GoPro. I have two of them. I bought the GoPros for Sarah and I to go behind the scenes in our engagement and our weddings. And I'm also going to bring it around with me while I travel and while I go throughout the days, you know, just kind of show you guys what I'm doing, and if I have thoughts on photography while I'm doing it, I'm going to bring those to you, just make a quick video and throw them up too. So please keep giving me that feedback, and please keep emailing me, sending me messages, telling me things that you need to learn about or stuff that you want to see from me, because trust me, this channel is for you guys. It really is. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about composition. It is a whole huge world of photography. I mean, it is something that you are going to be mastering and working towards mastering for your entire career. I don't care how long you've been doing it. It is nothing that ever gets perfected. And what I find is I take inspiration from different things and I incorporate a few different powerful things that make sense to me and that I tend to see on wedding days. That just kind of come to me in a subconscious way from the things that I take in. I look for a lot of selective lighting that highlights my subjects in an interesting way, separating out from the backgrounds, leading lines that draw your eye into the subject that you want to focus on. And there's a lot of different combos, but those are the main two: isolating with light and the leading lines to bring your eye to the subject or where you want the person to look who's viewing the photo. Other than that, another thing that I really do for composition is I look for, when I'm at weddings, I intensely focus on what's going on. It's always the moments in between the poses and the planned for moments that are the most interesting that happen. So what I do is I try and, when I know that we're going to I'm going to be shooting for a little while in a different location. So whether once we move into the ceremony area, if it's a new ceremony I haven't seen before, or if it's a new reception area, or if they're getting ready in a place, what I do is I scan the room first. I don't look at any of the people, or I'm not mainly looking at the people when I first get there. What I'm looking for in the room is how the room is constructed, where the mirrors are, where the pictures are on the wall. I'm looking at where the light's coming in from, what windows or what sliding doors, or if there's even any light and I need to create my own. I'm looking at the structure of the environment that I'm going to be shooting in before I actually try and look at the moments that are going on. Because once I know where I want to place people that make it interesting, like, you know, if I know there's a really pretty you know, certain mirror or something that's perfectly framed, you know, I can use that for a reflection, or I can put a bride in it while she's getting ready, maybe center her head perfectly in the middle of it. If there's some cool leading lines, I'll try and focus my attention by getting people in that area and then try and wait for moments to happen and then shoot with the environment incorporated into it. You know, I think one of the things that you guys need to think about, whether you're shooting weddings or you're shooting people or anything like that, is you should try to think of yourself as a landscape photographer, putting people in the landscape. So, you know, you're not technically, you know, and this is for like, this is generalized, obviously this is not every single photo, but that's what I like to think of myself as. I like to look for the beauty in the room, or I like to look for the beauty in the landscape and the atmosphere, and then try and find places to place my subjects so it makes it interesting. The composition, when you're doing it that way, becomes a lot easier because you're taking in the environment first. And then also too, you know, composition comes on the fly, especially when there's multiple people, you know, different dynamics happening in the same scene. It's very, very important. I have one photo that I'm going to show you guys, that it was the grandmother and grandfather of the groom, who had been married for like 60 something years. They're extremely elderly, and they had they were getting married. The couple that we were photographing was getting married on their anniversary. So it was an anniversary of the first anniversary, they just got married, and then the anniversary of like 68 years or something, 65 years or something. And they were dancing, and you could, you know, I framed it so you could see both couples in the frame, and you know, it was like 60, and I named it was like 65 seconds on one side, 65 years on the other. And it was, you know, it was one of their favorite photos. But composition is taking in different elements that are happening and combining them to tell two stories or multiple stories in the same frame. So we're not going to talk about that as much today. I want to keep this kind of to the point of a couple different digestible topics that you guys can kind of use. So what I'm going to do is we're going to flip over to my computer, and I'm going to bring up some examples and some photos that I did and from my favorite artist, Caravaggio. He's a painter. And I can kind of just show you guys what I'm talking about. It's very, very important that you guys strive to make interesting photos that are dynamic, that have stories going on in them, and that tell some type of, you know, that draw you in. That's really what makes captivating photos. There should be kind of stories inside the story. So I'm going to bring up a couple tips, and hopefully this will help you guys. So I'm going to switch over to my computer. Okay guys, so this is the first one that I wanted to go over with you. It is called The Calling of St. Matthew, and it's by Caravaggio. I don't know how much you guys have actually looked at Renaissance type, you know, paintings, but they can really teach you a lot. And they taught me a lot about lighting in the beginning. These guys were absolute masters of light. Obviously, they weren't using electric lights like we were, but they knew where the light was supposed to come from to highlight their subjects perfectly with the most... they used light in a way that would give them an emotional effect. And we can really, really learn a lot by going back and looking at actually how they painted this stuff. So this one right here is very, very cool. It's coming in from the window light. Obviously, the window light is coming in from a window on the right here and kind of streaming into everybody's faces, highlighting them as they talk to each other. It really, really does a good job of showing what basically a single directional light can do. Now, the best way to get better at lighting is to look at examples of how it's used and obviously to practice, but here's where you start. And so all you have to do is to dissect this stuff really is just look at where the lighting comes from on these, and then just go in and recreate it yourself. That's what I do and did. So all you would have to do really to recreate something like this is to just set up a powerful flash to the right, maybe put a grid on it, you know, and then just angle it towards your subjects off, you know, to have some directional light coming in and showing them actually interacting with each other. So this is really cool because it's dynamic. It has obviously a lot going on here. If you're at a wedding and you have a big table and everyone's laughing or something like that, what you have to do to get a good, I mean, this would, you want to have some directional light to kind of, you know, splash off everybody, kind of show the contours and the micro contrast in them, give something directional that's interesting. So here's a really good example of use of light here, and you know, this use of light, it goes into composition. It's the thing that kind of highlights, gives you the spotlight on the subjects that you want to be highlighted in the frame. You want people to actually focus on. So going back and looking at these old paintings, Renaissance paintings from Caravaggio is my favorite, but there's a lot of others. Raphael's unbelievable. Let's go back, guys, and study them and look at what these guys did with light. They were absolute masters at it. Here's the second one I wanted to show you guys. This is a photo I shot with Sarah. It was a winter day or winter night, and we were kind of snowed in, basically, like literally snowed in. Couldn't do anything, couldn't leave the house, and so we were just kind of coming up with some ideas for photos that we could do. And I came up with this idea, had this in my head for actually a couple years. I wanted to kind of tell this story of, a woman pretending that she's asleep when her husband comes home. So, she wouldn't have to talk to him, basically, like kind of showing the strife in a relationship type deal. I thought it was really cool, and I kind of thought it would be a good opportunity for us to recreate it. So, so this is another directional light highlighting a subject that I wanted to show you guys. Composition that tells some type of story, and using light to highlight something that you want people to think about. So obviously, we have the light coming from two different areas. I set up a light outside the door to highlight me, so here I would go to that, but then obviously we have a spotlight on Sarah's face right here while she's sleeping or pretending to sleep. So, two simple lights, guys, and you can create a story that's dynamic. It makes you think, it makes you, kind of think that there's a story going on here. That's the whole point, guys. You want your light not just to give some beautiful effect, but to highlight your subjects in a way that tells a story. You have to think about it first and then bring it into existence by highlighting your subjects. This is a good example. This is when I first started. I shot this a couple of years ago, and this is when I first started to really get into the Renaissance painters and look how they, highlighted their subjects to tell the story and to draw you in. But this is a good example. I'm actually, there's not too many photos that I'm actually proud of. I'm very, very critical of my work. And so, I have a few that I shoot every year that I actually like, but this is one that I always go back to that I was like, wow, that was, kind of a cool idea. I wanted to show you guys that one. Alright guys, so this is the other one that I wanted to show you. Obviously we got a bride here, and I shot this a while ago. Another one of my favorite images. Basically a good use of leading lines here. So obviously at the entrance of a church, and we got these crazy lines going straight up. The architecture of the building is kind of drawing you from the ground all the way straight up in kind of like a V right above her head. This is a really good example of leading lines. So, basically the lines in this way, they're not leading you up, they're kind of leading you down and going around her. And I think it's a really, really good example of a way that you guys can place a subject in something that's very interesting. The front of the building was just kind of like, it was a really new church, and everything was rigid and jagged and sharp corners and things like that. And I just looked around, and I was like, okay, let's place her right in the middle of it, because we have some things that are going to be directing the eye. You got to look around, guys, and use the environment to place your subjects in. Most people just want to shoot the actual people there, but once you start to master photography and you start to get really good, you start to bring in multiple elements from the scene or wherever you're shooting to draw your attention into a story. This one was also lit with a grid, one speed light, camera left, and a grid on it, right through her veil right there. So you're getting some directional light that didn't spill out. But yeah, the main thing that I love about it is the composition of the background, placing her right in the middle of it. Guys, it's really, really important that you just do whatever you can to take in the scene. I'm going to keep hammering that, because composition for me really involves the environment that you're shooting in. It's very, very important that you look around and start to place your subjects with whatever makes sense and whatever's the most interesting around you. You got to work with what you have in every scenario, because it's always going to be different. Here's another one I got for you. We shot this at an engagement shoot in Newport, Rhode Island, and I thought it would be a good example to tell you guys about something that I learned early on in photography. A really good photographer told me basically what you should think about are 4 things whenever you're shooting at a wedding or shooting people. Get really close, get really far, get really high, or get really low. Okay? So basically what that person was trying to hammer into my head was, do not just shoot straight on. Look for different angles, interesting angles, and always be moving around and trying to experiment with what you're doing and your perspective. This is a really cool shot there was obviously a bunch of rocks we were kind of climbing on, and I had them really far away. It's pretty much a simple shot, but it's just using the environment, placing subjects in there, and then looking for perspectives. That's all it is, guys. In the beginning, this stuff can kind of seem like a mystery, but after you do it over and over and over again, and if you can kind of just slow yourself down, the first thing that you do is just slow yourself down and just look at where you're shooting, look at the environment that you're at, and say, okay, what do I have to work with here? Where are the leading lines? Where are the negative spaces? Where are the interesting, props or, highlights or things that kind of draw you in, and then put your people in those spots. And then go ahead and remember what I just said with those 4 perspectives. Get close, get far, get up, get down, get high, get low. You don't want to just sit there. I mean, obviously there's a place, family formals and things like that, just shooting straight on, but you want to be dynamic. Create energy with your photos by giving different perspectives. I can't tell you how many boring photos I see that are just shot straight on that could have been great if you just did something a little bit better. And that goes into the composition. Camera angles, that's huge. That's huge. Go look at, that movie, Natural Born Killers. I was watching that the other day. Man, Oliver Stone, what a genius. That guy, go look at his camera angles through that movie, and you'll start to learn from the masters of, they don't just sit there and shoot straight on. You know what I mean? And it's almost like a subconscious thing. We're so tuned to seeing unbelievable videos and movies and photos from these guys. We're not even actually breaking it apart and looking at the angles that these guys are using, and that's what keeps it dynamic and interesting, or one of the things. So this is just a good example of getting further away and what you can kind of do when you have an atmosphere, you see some cool stuff, and you place your subject in it, and then you look for different angles. Okay, this is the photo I was talking about earlier at that wedding that we shot, where there were 65 years on the right side here and then 65 minutes on the left side. So, basically it is what it is right there, guys. That is a story within a story. You have 2 people who are they're brand new married, and then you have 2 people who are just going towards the end of their lives, who have spent a whole lifetime together, and have that typical love story, or not the typical, that fairy tale love story or whatever, that it just lasts forever and they're still happy, and all that. So it's a story within a story. This, I didn't have any time to set up with any lights. You can tell it's kind of grainy, but honestly, Sarah and I were eating at the time in the other room, and I had just for some reason I had a feeling, I was like, man, I should just go check in there real quick, and I just got up and this was happening, so I just grabbed my camera and just started shooting. I had to bump up the ISO because I didn't have any time to set up a light, but yeah, this is just another example of a story within a story, composition, things that are dynamic, things that are not just straight on, just one subject. Although that can be good, but we're talking about stories within stories here. Look for this stuff, guys. You want to see, because when I was shooting, I did get a couple shots of just them, but in my mind, I was thinking about what was going on here. I was thinking about, okay, we have 2 newly married people. We have another couple here that have been married forever. Let's get the contrast in there of both of them. Let me get both of them in the subject. And, as soon as they saw this, they absolutely loved it. It's a moving photo for them because they love these people so much and they're involved in it and all that. So it's just a dynamic photo that, shows you how to create a story within a story and how to have multiple elements to, tell something. It's really, really important, guys. All right, guys, so I hope you found that helpful. I think it's really, really important that we keep going over stuff like this. If you guys have any other questions about other things that you want me to touch on, tutorials, lectures, things like that, just keep sending them. Just keep sending them, because this is great. This is exactly what I want to do. I want to pass on my knowledge, stuff that I got for you guys, and kind of help you get a different perspective from another photographer who's out there working. It's very, very important, guys, that you look at your environment and you find out what you can do with your subjects before you start shooting. As soon as you walk into a new room, look around, figure out where the leading lines are, figure out where the inspirational stuff is, figure out where the cool wall art is, or things that you can place people in, and then start shooting the moments around that stuff. Also, remember the perspectives. Get very close, get very far, get high, get low. Change it up, guys. Don't just shoot straight on. Increase your compositional skills by giving different angles. Go back and watch that movie. Go watch Natural Born Killers, directed by Oliver Stone. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Very low angles, very high stuff all over the place, and it was very dynamic, draws you in. So let me know what you guys think of this video. If there's other things you could think I should do videos on, or if there's anything that I could do better here, I can improve on. Obviously, I'm really trying to improve the the production value of this channel. I'm not going to get too crazy, but I have my intro going. I hope you guys like that, and I'm just trying to do different things to keep it interesting for you guys too. So really appreciate all the feedback, really appreciate all the new subscribers, comments, emails, all that stuff. Keep it coming, guys. Keep shooting.